Believe it or not, games used to be funny.
How are you gonna fill that nut with ladies?
Hey, show me some respect, boy.
Go fuck yourself, you just a bitch.
I'm headed into the lair of the giant spider queen. Anybody got a problem with that? My friend is dying. I'm heading in there now. You sure you don't want to talk me out of it? No? Okay.
I know. Maybe you're just old because that new COD Weed DLC is pretty fucking funny to me, bro. Look, I get it. I'm getting old and
maybe games still are funny.
But let me take you back to a time where every game used to be funny. And I'm not talking some cheesy one-liner tacked on by an intern. I'm talking,
Wow, that game was freaking sick. I feel like drinking a monster and yelling at my mom for dinner.
type of funny. You see, back in the 2000s, the world was a bit different. And to understand why video games aren't the same anymore, we have to look at how media has changed as a whole. Comedy ruled the scene back in those times, from movies to TV shows and even in video games. This is a world where being edgy wasn't even a thing. It was just the norm. It could be rose-tinted glasses, but we're talking a time where people's insensitivities were considered comedy gold on national television. And stuff like this...
Mother now, and you chose to dress that baby up in a t-shirt that says what?
Gaby.
That's not the baby's name, is it?
No, I gave him like a traditional African name.
So what's the baby's name?
OJ.
was nominated at the Teen Choice Awards. If stuff like this was made today, sure, it might make it on Netflix or some independent publisher, but it sure as hell wouldn't be promoted by NBC or nominated for any awards. And why is that? What has happened to comedy? And why aren't the DVDs at the grocery checkout those low-budget spoofs with the big red font and the chick with the big-ass boot? You know what I'm talking about. Let's start with the fact nobody uses DVDs anymore, alright? But continuing on. By today's standards, you can be a total piece of shit, but if you're funny, you a funny piece of shit. But if you were raised by the likes of Eric Cartman or SpongeBob SquarePants, funny comes second nature. I may be almost 30 with a bachelor's degree and no idea what I'm doing with my life, but I like to think I'm funny, and I owe that to the 2000s. But what we're talking about today is video games. And while most video games may have never been as absurd as the aforementioned, they matched the energy of the period, and it showed. In the funny 2000s, games were in a place where graphics were becoming believable, and audio had advanced enough that whole voiced-out stories were possible. Let's not leave the 90s out of this, they definitely had humor too. Like Last Alert in 1990, one of the earlier games to ever utilize voice actors.
Guy Kazama, you better watch what you say to me. I'm really quick on the trigger.
In the 90s, voice acting was more of a feature. In the 2000s, it became the standard. And with this new expectation came a slew of new writers, directors, and developers looking to put their stamp on this new culture. And games were big, but they sure as hell weren't the cash cow they've developed into today. Which meant game devs had a sense of freedom. And with said freedom, man's first instinct? Poop jokes.
I am the great mighty Pooh, and I'm going to throw my shit at you.
While Conker's Bad Fur Day in 2001 might be the closest we'll get to a AAA game going commando, the 2000s were just beginning, and the freedom of creation on Mr. Publisher's buck was still alive as the years went on. Back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore, but some days I sit and wish I was a kid again. In 2006, Rockstar Games, famous for Rockstar Table Tennis at the time, released Bully. I can hear the GTA and Red Dead stands scratching at my door already. A game where you played as a high school bully who could serve mean swirlies, kick people in the nuts, or even do this. Maybe it's a good thing we got rid of that last part. But the disregard for appropriateness was evident. It was a game about an edgy high schooler, for edgy high schoolers. Let's also take a brief moment to remember a time when there was a whole 30-minute TV show dedicated to video games. X-Play. I remember it being a big deal when I finally upgraded from cable to satellite so I could finally talk about it with the kids at school. They kind of birthed the whole let's play voiceover review stuff. The best part? It was 90% jokes and edgy humor.
Here at X-Play, we play a lot of games. And sometimes there are moments that seem a little, well, gay.
It's kind of my #1 inspiration when making content. Saints Row released in 2006, and while it was good and kind of funny, it was mostly referred to as a shitty GTA clone. So the franchise decided to lean into the funny in 2008 with Saints Row 2, an all-time favorite of mine. And guess what? Since then, developer Volition has decided to become not funny. So not funny that in 2022, when they released a Saints Row reboot, oh, I like that game. It performed so poorly that the company was forced to shut its doors in 2024.
Great, well, I'm off to go kill myself.
Rest in peace, Johnny Gat. Psychonauts in 2005 was released by the funny gaming legend Tim Schafer, whose every game seemed to emphasize the funny aspect, tying the humor seamlessly into the narrative without taking shortcuts. He followed up Psychonauts' success with Brutal Legends, featuring another funny legend of the time, Jack Black. Tim Schafer was finally getting paid to do the thing he loved most, be funny. By the way, if you're an aging fossil of a game or two, you might want to hit that subscribe button. I have a feeling I'll need your support. I bet you, yes you, who I just asked to subscribe, were never cool or old enough to pick up one of those Leisure Suit Larry games. Well, neither was I. But I distinctly remember seeing them on store shelves and in my gaming magazines back in the day. It was among many things I wish I could get my prepubescent hands on. Believe it or not, there used to be an AO ESRB back in that period, signifying the game was for adults only. Sony and Microsoft eventually agreed to stop allowing these games on their platforms, as retailers refused to sell them as well.
We used to be a country, a proper country.
Remember when Fallout did this?
Nobody's dick's that long. Not even Long Dick Johnson, and he had a fucking long dick.
So Starfield could do this.
There's been word of suspicious behavior from someone matching your description. No, you match the description. No, you match the description. We look nothing alike. I'm beginning to think you're the intruder. I'm not going to say this again. There's only one person who matches the description, and that's you. Now explain yourself, Ensign, or face the consequences. What? That doesn't even make sense. You got me so confused. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Arriving a hair late and putting my whole bit about the golden 2000s to rest is Portal 2 in 2011.
Wait, what if this hurts? What if this really hurts? Oh, I didn't think of that.
Oh, it will. Believe me, it will.
Are you just saying that, or is it really gonna hurt? You're just saying that, aren't you? No, you're not. It is gonna hurt, isn't it? Exactly how painful are we?
Some consider Portal 2 to be the funniest game of all time. I wouldn't know. I tried playing the first one and was acing every puzzle with ease when all of a sudden the game went missing. No idea what happened to it. Super easy though. Nevertheless, Portal 2 was a major success, but it marked the beginning of the end. You see, in the 2010s, Obama started bombing little kids, huh? No. Well, yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. Good old Tim, who we mentioned earlier, went on to say in an interview in 2011, there are a lot of funny people in the games industry, and they seem to think of the funny thing and then say, no, I can't do that. Let's cut that out because someone might be bothered by that. I think if people censored themselves less, there'd be a lot more funny stuff out there. What could have caused this? What could have been the straw that broke the camel's back? And then it hit me. The exact moment when making jokes and not caring what people thought became totally not cool. Oh, I remember seeing that in kindergarten. So sad. Okay, it's a stretch. But I do remember a time when Coney changed what was popular in media. Anyways, the real darkness brought on by all this light going on in the 2010s was the ever so dangerous gluten allergies, a growing intolerance to the common joke, to things like bread. Now imagine how tough that could be. What used to be a staple in your life could now ruin it. This concept might be a bit confusing to you guys, so I'm gonna stop beating around the bush. I'm not talking about people becoming sensitive to gluten in the 2010s, which actually was a thing. We should probably do a little research on how that happened. I'm talking about people becoming sensitive to the R word, B word, C word, F word, the yo mama so fat, the dead baby jokes. You're remembering those dead baby jokes now, aren't ya? You're welcome. Just tapped into some good old nostalgia for ya. Anyways, gone were the days of saying whatever you wanted with no remorse. And for better or worse, this extended to all forms of media. But time went on. In the 2010s, Call of Duty grew to new heights and helped gaming become the major juggernaut it is today. Ironically, it was also the new safe haven for anyone who wanted to act like it was the 2000s still, acting like a speakeasy for the racist and homophobic.
Nah, dog, learn how to fucking shoot a gun, you fucking riot shield. What else you want me to talk about? Riot shield! I'm a pussy that use riot shield! What do you want me to use?
Ah, good times. Other publishers saw how much money these weak, storied, mind-numbing gameplay online games could make. This altered the focus of those big publishers who were investing in the narrative-based games. We were all aboard the online train. I mean, any smart businessman would do the same, so I can't blame them. So it's capitalism's fault. I knew it. Call me. This move by publishers was evident in one of the franchises I hold dearly to my heart, Battlefield, and especially the Bad Company series. Battlefield was always known for its amazing multiplayer, but with Bad Company, developer DICE had the great idea to inject humor and over-the-top edginess into the game's veins. The campaign, while rooted in realism, was unserious and took risks. And the campaign was loved just as much as the multiplayer, a rare feat for the time. This carried over to Battlefield Bad Company 2, which perfected the recipe. And that game is considered to be one of the best games of all time. But then 2011 rolled around, and Battlefield 3 was ready to hit the shelves. For some unthinkable reason, they decided to strip all of the humor, leaving us with just another military shooter in a sea of seriousness. Call of Duty didn't do the funny, so we shouldn't either. And to each their own, but I think the mainstreamification of Battlefield 3 is the reason why the Battlefield franchise is in the state it's in today. I don't think it's fair to solely blame Call of Duty for the state of video games today. They did a noble job of perfecting the game that they've always done. But that didn't really inspire creativity either, which only exasperated the rise of mobile games. Frickin' mobile games. I can't really say I was ever into mobile games. Until recently, there's actually some pretty good quality games you can play on your phone. But back then, as long as you could feed Granny's addiction to large numbers on screen, you had money to be made. And boy, was there grannies who liked big numbers. With the addition of mobile games to the mix, there was no choice but to shift away from narratives, if you enjoyed money at least. This isn't to say it was the end of narrative games, it just majorly reduced the frequency and quality of them. And the ones that did try to be funny were gluten-free funny, like diet mayonnaise. You ever had diet mayonnaise? Don't. I'm looking at you, Borderlands 3, which goes to prove the decline didn't just happen overnight. Borderlands 2 came out in 2012, and that was pretty great. I don't think there was an exact moment when this stuff died, which kind of ruins my argument, but it was more of a slow drip as years went on and people changed more and more. Once in a while, you would get that AAA game trying to be funny. Emphasis on the trying.
Shit, this door is code locked.
You can hack the code with your Spectrum Analyzer.
Let me guess. You messed with my camera again, right?
You're a quick one.
That's what she said.
I think you smell what I'm stepping in at this point. But guess what? This video isn't all doom and gloom. It's simply a retrospective or opinion piece. I actually have quite a positive outlook on gaming today. I think it's okay to miss the ways of the old in one hand and bask in the inventions of today in the other. I don't think edgy, funny video games are completely dead just yet. Mr. Schafer finally got greenlit on another Psychonauts game in 2021. though a bit tamed compared to its prior. And Microsoft may never fund something like that again, but at least it happened, right? And High on Life came out of left field by a smaller developer and reignited the flames of funny and edgy video games, hopefully. Not to mention the indie devs who completely carried the torch during the dark times. The Stanley Parable and Undertale come to mind. Now imagine if those beautiful minds had a AAA budget. Meh. Probably better they stay indie, but there is hope. Funny game gamers are missing their drug, and when one of these games comes out and it really makes a splash, I promise they will wake up from their humorless slumber and edge it out one more time. And while I do believe smaller dev teams and especially indie teams can carry the torch for funny games, I still long for that edge in my games like Battlefield, or the robust world sprawling with life that you could explore wielding a dildo. All I ask is if we do get a Bad Company 3, please don't make it gluten-free. Do I ever think the major publishers will ever take that risk again? Probably not, but I can sure hope so. Let's look at the bright side. The future seems to be in good hands.
I just wanna go.